Hi, and welcome. Today, I'm going to start talking about 3-act structure. I'm going to have a lot of videos that are going to cover the topic of structure, but today we're starting to dip our toes into this notion. When we think about structure, I don't want you to think of this as rules that you have to follow no matter what. I actually want you to think of this as tools for your toolbox. When we're thinking about structure, I want you to think about a building, as in this image right here. On one side, we have the structure of the building. It's a blueprint. A lot of buildings can look like that based on that blueprint. A lot of buildings can have the same blueprint. But when you look at the finished product, that building is very specific. It's unique. It's beautiful. It's the same thing with structure. Structure is the blueprint for your story. The story itself is going to be unique and personal, and only you could write it. So what I'm giving to you are tools so you can write that story. There are different ways to approach structure, and we're going to cover those on the channel as time goes by. So today I want to start talking about the most common use of structure, which is 3-act structure. When we think about a story, and I tell you to divide it in 3 parts, you're immediately going to divide it into beginning, middle, and end. 1, 2, 3. That's no accident. It's not a coincidence. Act 1 is the beginning, Act 2 is your middle, and Act 3 is the end. All right, that might not help you much, right? So let's think about kids' stories, for example. How do most kids' stories start? How do most children's books start? Once upon a time, right? And once upon a time, what? Once upon a time, there was a character living their normal lives, living in the status quo. That's a really practical way to think about your beginning. Let's meet our characters living their normal lives, living their routine. This does not mean we need to see them waking up and brushing their teeth and having coffee, because everyone does those things. What is specific to your character's routine? So if we're continuing with the children's book analogy, usually what happens is, until one day, something happens. Something happens that disrupts the status quo, that removes our character from his or her routine. Our character then is going to try to remedy that and get back to his balance, get back to their routine. And that's going to set them on a journey. That thing that shifted their balance is going to have our character react to that. That's going to make him probably have a goal. And the goal is something external, but the internal goal is to return to balance. So once upon a time, there was a character living his or her normal life until one day something disrupts that normal life and sends our character on a journey to get the balance back. Our character is going to react to that event, and one thing is going to lead to a next, going to lead to the next, going to lead to the next. Going back to our kids' book analogy, what happens next is, and in the end, we're going to see our character either get what they want or not get what they want. So once upon a time, there was a character living his or her normal life until one day something happens that sets our character on a journey to get whatever he needs or wants. One thing leads to the next, one thing leads to the next, one thing leads to the next. And in the end, our character is going to get what they want or not, be forever changed. The end. Once upon a time is Act 1, until one day is Act 2, and in the end is Act 3. That is a practical way to think about 3-act structure. It's a way that you can start thinking about your story from the beginning. Another very useful way to think about your story and divide it in 3 acts, and this is something that is helpful from the beginning when you're starting to conceptualize your story, is bringing up this notion of dramatic question. What is a dramatic question? The dramatic question is the question that arises in the viewer or the reader and that they're going to want to see answered by the end of the movie. It is a yes or no question, and it's usually, will the character achieve their goal or not? The dramatic question for Finding Nemo is, will Marlin find his son Nemo? Will Brody kill the shark? In Silence of the Lambs is, will Clarice be able to catch Buffalo Bill before he kills the senator's daughter? The dramatic question is a way to engage our viewer. Our viewer is going to want to see the movie until the end to see that question answered. You raise the question in the beginning and you answer it in the end. In the wonderful movie Nope by Jordan Peele, there's a very simple dramatic question is, will they be able to get the picture? They have a motivation for the picture. They're going to sell it for money and save the ranch. But we're going to watch that movie until the end because we want to see if they can get that picture or not. It's very important to raise a dramatic question and answer at the end. You start the movie, you raise the dramatic question. Everything before the dramatic question is Act 1. You raise a dramatic question, the movie progresses, one thing leads to the next, one thing leads to the next. We're going to see our character trying to get their goal, and by the end of the movie, you're going to answer the dramatic question in a yes or no fashion. That's another way to divide your story in 3 parts. You raise the dramatic question, you answer it. Everything before the dramatic question is Act 1. That's another way to divide your story in 3 parts. You raise a dramatic question, you answer it. If you have a line and you raise a dramatic question and answer it, you divide your story in 3. We are going to get into the nitty-gritty of Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. What are the transitions? What are these turning points? We are going to cover all that. But right now, when you're starting to conceptualize your story, it is really important that you know what your dramatic question is and what the answer is. You should know the answer to your dramatic question. You might not know from the beginning how your character is going to get what they want or not get what they want, because our characters do not always get what they want, but you should know if they're going to get it or not. When engineers build a bridge, they don't start at one side of the river and then go to the other side. They start at both ends and slowly meet in the middle. It should be similar with your story. You should at least know what the answer to your dramatic question is. Another way to think about dramatic question is in terms of genre. A lot of genres tend to have similar dramatic questions no matter what the story is. So in romantic comedies, the dramatic question tends to be, will this couple be together at the end? In murder mysteries, it tends to be, will this cop or this detective be able to solve the case by the end of the movie? These are yes or no questions. I hope this is useful. We are going to continue to talk about structure as the weeks go by, so please subscribe to get notification of these new videos. Thank you so much.